Hey there, Mark Brown. Speaking is one thing, training is another, and we do monthly workshops. We've been doing it for 2-3 decades. However, the biggest influence on our training has been Ed Tate. He is the trainer's trainer. Mark?
Listen, if you want to hear a great trainer, just stay tuned because we want to find out from you, like Ed, is your training unforgettable?
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
Hey there, Mark Brown. We often say everything we know about speaking, we learn from Fripp. But everything we know about training, we learn from Ed. Ed is the trainer's trainer, the ultimate of engagement. I see people do it. I'm like, that's Ed Tate. Boom. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me back again.
2000 world champion in public speaking, and our friend, our brother. Training is different from speaking. And unfortunately, a lot of speakers think, I'll just add an exercise to my content.
Let me jump on that idea, Darren. My first question is a softball to Ed. Ed, what are some of the common mistakes that Darren talks about? People say, well, I'm a speaker. I'll make a few tweaks. I'll have a training ready. What are common mistakes you see speakers making when they make the assumption it's a very easy transition from speaking to training?
So I'm not going to name the individual. I'm not going to throw them underneath the bus. I will say this, that I spoke with this particular individual afterwards, and they have made a quantum leap in terms of changing. It was a Hall of Fame speaker. This person is one of the best on planet Earth. If you ever saw them, you would absolutely love them. And he decided to make the transition to training. So he gave a training session, and basically what he did was he took his keynote and had a handout with a few fill in the blanks, and just thought that was training. We got together with a few PowerPoint slides, etc. A keynote, and Darren, I'll let you say what the definition of a keynote is. What's the phrase that you use?
Patricia Fripp says it's a higher level of abstraction.
Exactly.
And
so, go ahead.
And I learned from you, it's about changing behavior.
Yes.
As opposed to changing perspective. An inspirational keynote is about changing perspective, giving a new insight. You don't have time for the how-to. Training is not only the how-to, but you're different after.
Exactly. So you have to, in this case, focus on the behavior, and you want to have what I call the Toriel effect. Toriel is my 6-year-old daughter, and she always walks up to me and she says, Daddy, I did it all by myself. Well, that's what you want your participants to walk away with. It's the emphasis is on them. It's not on the speakers. Usually, if you walk away from a keynote, you're impressed with the speaker. When you walk away from a training, the audience should be impressed with themselves. And that's the difference.
Ed drop. Boom. Ed, I just see you as like the engagement guy, the engagement guru. When you even do your keynotes, you get the audience involved like right from the beginning. I believe too, you had the audience at the World Championship repeat after you. It's going to be
one of those days. So to what degree, Ed, is engagement required? From what Darren just said, I'm assuming there are folks here who say, you know what, I don't know how training is different. So how is engagement a factor that Darren mentioned just now?
Engagement is a factor. Well, typically training's longer for the most part, or it could be the same length as a keynote, if you will. I'm going to, Darren just mentioned that I actually throw engagement into my keynote. I was a closing keynote speaker yesterday at a major insurance conference. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a lot of humidity. They have just eaten a late lunch. I could see that, I need to bring the energy. So literally, I changed my opening of my keynote. And I said, this audience needs to stand up. They need to, get some energy going, if you will. Now, you guys have seen me do this hundreds of times. It's, it's a so what, who cares, what's in it for me.
But
That
not
was
at the
not
beginning. I've never seen you do it at the beginning. But
well, they introduced me. So it was after my introduction.
Mhm.
So it was after my introduction, and they're giving me all the, and unfortunately, they lost my original introduction. So they're reading my bio, which is another mistake. We'll talk about that for another day. So they're just basically reading this long resume, and I could just see people, their eyes, and there are people on their phones, etc. And I said, in a moment, I want everyone to stand up and repeat after me. Boom. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? I was like, that's what you guys were thinking when they were reading my introduction, weren't you?
Nice.
And everyone kind of laughed. And I said, and this is a sales audience. And I says, by the way, that's what your prospects are thinking. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me when you're making your pitch and your presentation? And everyone went, ooh. So let's unpack it. In the moment, again, it's a keynote. It's not a training, but because of my training ninja skills, I saw in the moment I needed to make an adjustment. Think about like in sports, you have the quarterback, and the quarterback calls an audible. Well, in this case, I called an audible. It's like in this case, this is what this audience needs in this particular moment. How can I make it work? How can I make it relevant? Okay, this is a sales audience. This is what their prospects are thinking about them. They've been talking about all day. How can we better engage our prospects? It was absolutely perfect. It was absolutely perfect. So that's how I brought a training skill in the moment into a keynote.
Nice. Mark, I look at and when an audience is down, we even had Game Changers at our event. I could see the energy was down. I'm like, quick, put out the bat signal, call Ed. This is a job for Ed Tate. Dun, 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 dun. But it's serious. And then if you just bring a speaker who comes on and does their regular thing, it's okay. But I love watching you work. Mark?
Well, go ahead, Ed. Please continue.
Well, the last Game Changers, you had me be the final presenter on day 2. And again, energy-wise, I called an audible. It was different from what I had originally planned. I said, okay, this audience needs energy. I also, in all fairness, I borrowed the concept from Craig Valentine. Craig Valentine was one of the other presenters, and he had this one idea, which I think is brilliant. I've been using it ever since. And I forgot what he called it, but basically I'm going to call it a micro talk among yourselves. He says, take 30 seconds, just talk about this idea and this concept. Now, usually I tell the audience, talk among yourselves for 2 to 3 minutes, but I love the 30 seconds because that forced people to act faster. So I actually incorporated that in my presentation because I'm the last speaker of the day. They've been listening to people all day long. And again, the energy level is low. They're already full. I call it the Thanksgiving effect. Have you ever had on Thanksgiving where people that they've overeaten and they're sitting on the couch and they're full? Well, that's sometimes at the end of the day, if you're the closing keynote speaker, the audience intellectually is full. And, so what can you do then to help them with regard to that? And so anyway, I said, hey, we're going to do these 30-second micro talk to your neighbors, et cetera. And again, it was how my brain thinks in terms of training. And here's the question to process on. What's the best thing I can do to support the audience? This audience on this specific day in this specific moment. And because of my literally decades of experience, I can call an audible, if you will, to use the football metaphor.
All right. So here we are now. You mentioned earlier, Darren said it's not the same as keynote and trainings are different. And keynotes more work on the mind and training is before behavior. Okay. But I have this keynote and I was told if I just change a few slides around and expand on this one point, I can turn my 45-minute keynote into a half a day training. Won't that work? And if not, why?
I'm going to use this insurance company as an example. The one thing I've never done before, I to the degree I did with this particular company, we met on 6 separate occasions. It was a committee. And the committee wanted to know exactly what I was going to be presenting. And again, they kept saying, hey, what's going to be the walkaway? What's going to be the walkaway? What's going to be the walkaway? Now, initially, I got to be frank, I was annoyed. But you know what? They were 100% right. They were 100% right. They knew their audience, and they wanted to know how they were going to get this idea and how were they going to walk away with the idea. So that forced me to come up with a model. And that's what they wanted. They want some type of model that they can walk away with. A keynote, they may talk about abstractions. There's this thing called Hayakawa's ladder of abstractions. Let me give you an example of what that means. So the first level is a society. It's very, very broad. It's very, very abstract. That's typically where keynotes are. Level 2 is most people. So we've gone from society to most people, but still it's very, very abstract. Then we have a spoiled child. Now we're getting a little bit more specific, if you will. And then finally, we have the spoiled child is my cousin Ricky. We have a very, very specific. So we've gone from the clouds to the ground. And that's the difference with training. A keynote, it's in the clouds. The ideas are up here. They're abstractions. Training is we're down on the ground. We got boots on the ground. And this is how you actually do something. And we give people a specific model so that way they can have a walk away. So getting back to your question, Mark, is that's where the keynoter who doesn't have that training or that background knows how to make this idea actionable for their participants. That's the biggest mistake.
Yeah, and going back to, is your training unforgettable? How can we make training unforgettable? I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's the reminder, instructions have to be clear. Otherwise, you go to, whether it's virtual on Zoom or live in person, you get in groups and you spend half the time or 3/4 of the time. What are we supposed to do? Because we, as the trainer, think it's clear. It's clear in our head. They should know. Duh, I said it. Yet it's not clear to the audience.
So instructions, there's multiple pieces to instructions. If you have complex instructions. So for example, I have this process. My process is how I teach people my methodology of storytelling. So this is Ed's method of storytelling. And it's called the 4 H's: head, heart, humor, heavy hitting. Those, it technically should be 5 H's. I just tried to be cute, if you will. But when I'm teaching this process, it's a multi-tiered process. So I give them instructions in phases. So here's phase number 1. I give them these digestible pieces, if you will, so they understand this first phase. And then after they understand that phase, then we go to the next phase of the instructions. And then after they've digested that piece, then we go to the next phase. So this is a complex, it's a simple model, but it's complex in terms of the directions and instructions. Darren, you have this great expression. I absolutely love it. And that is never leave any participant behind. And that is a golden rule for training, especially if you're giving instructions or directions. You never want to leave a participant behind. Other things is you want to have repetition. Repetition is your friend in training. In keynoting, you may mention an idea once, and that's it. But in training, you have to mention over and over and over again in different ways, because you have different types of learning styles. You have different types of behavior styles, if you will. So, you may present it like, auditorily one way, but someone needs to see it visually. And you have to present the instructions in multiple modalities. So, you have to speak it, you have to show it in PowerPoint slides, and sometimes you have to have the participants actually act it out, if you will, to make sure that everyone understands. So that's another big difference between keynoting and training.
I know the biggest aha I got from you, if you truly want to make training unforgettable and change behavior, the idea comes from a line from Patricia: true learning happens in moments of reflection. What I learned from you is the power of the debrief. And I think a lot of people who do training don't understand this is the important part. The exercise is secondary. Instructions need to be clear. Exercise is secondary, but debriefing the exercise, because you just gave them an experience. But the debriefing is critical. Give us some insights on how to do that right.
So again, it's fresh in my mind. So I've got an example from yesterday from this insurance company. I told a story about how an individual had zero to no resources, and they were able to achieve an incredible goal. It was very, very specific to the industry. So forgive me for speaking vaguely, and I've also sounded non-disclosure. So I got to be really, really careful here. Anyway, so like using it's a keynote, but I'm using some of my training skills because it's late in the afternoon and I want them to walk away with this. So after I gave the example, and I just asked a question, how can you use this idea and apply it in your world? So people talked at their tables, and then one of them repeated back to me. They said that, wow, if this person with that limited resources can do that particular accomplishment, what's our problem? What's our issue? Because our company is providing us with a ton of resources, etc. So it came out of their mouth. It didn't come out of my mouth. That was awesome. And then we unpacked that. I didn't have time for a true debrief because, again, it's a keynote. Okay, so in the keynote, we don't have time for a debrief. But in a training, you want to spend time unpacking that. Well, how can you act? And here's the most important debrief question. How do these ideas we talked about here, how can you use them out there? And that's if you remember nothing else about a debrief, is talk about how you're going to apply it out. When you get back to your office, what's the first thing you're going to do? This is insurance and finance. They talked about this concept of, it's called the rule of 72. Well, the rule of 72 in finance is how long does it take your investment to double? There's a rule of 72 in the training world, and that is this. The rule of 72 is, unless you apply what you have learned in 72 hours, your education will not double. In fact, you won't apply any of the ideas at all.
True that. Yep. And Ed, you and I have a Train the Trainer coming up. If you're listening to this, depending on what year, we have one coming up in September 2025. You can go to stagetimeworkshops.com, see the current schedule. But if you truly want your trainings to be unforgettable, I encourage you to join us, because Ed and I are going to deliver an experience from which you can model. So it will be hybrid, coming up September, second weekend in September. Join us for that. Check out the schedule, stagetimeworkshops.com. And Ed, one of the things that I love, and at NSA, when I was talking about it this weekend at our NSA chapter, and opening it up for people to join us, how many people have been before? Like a third of the audience raised their hand, and several of them have been more than once. And one of them mentioned your model for putting together trainings quickly and how they still use it today. And I love that. That's one of the takeaways. Not only do you show us, you give us a tool, and now we can do it on our own. And anyway,
here's one of the principles I want to talk about. There's two things I want to mention. Idea number one is we're only doing this once a year. Corporations have paid me tens of thousands of dollars for what you're going to get for a fraction of that, or like possibly even a tenth of that. Okay, so they pay tens of thousands of dollars. We're only doing this once a year, so that's one thing I want to point out as well. The tools that we teach you are actionable immediately. No further study is required. The vast majority of trainings you go to, hey, you got homework. It's almost like you're studying for a PhD. You got to do additional research and all this other stuff. No. How we design our trainings is that so that the second you walk out the door, actually within the training, we have a process where you can identify what are you going to do and when are you going to do it. In fact, we actually allow you time to actually schedule it and put it on your planner or whatever tool that you use to plan. So that's another thing that's different. So you know exactly when you go to your office or you return to where your hometown or wherever that may be, boom, with in less than 72 hours. We like 24 hours. We want you to take one step in 24 hours rather than wait a couple days so that you actually implement and execute. So and again, the example you just talked about, that one tool, they still use it to this day. The tool was so simple and easy to use. They were able to apply it and they keep on using the tool.
One last question for you, Ed. Advice to the individual who was encouraged to, look, you've got a keynote. It's a really good keynote. You probably do 3 hours, okay? And they say yes, and they realize, wait, I can't just expand my slides. Is there in a panic? Ed, I need to take this 1 hour and make it 3. Is there an emergency step that they can take? It's almost unfair to ask this question, but you and I have discussed emergencies before when you were competing years ago. Is there a technique or a methodology that would be helpful to them until they really learn the skill? If they found themselves in a bind, they said yes when they shouldn't have. A weird question, I know, but thought.
Well, yes. In an emergency, contact Stage Time University. Boom.
Nice.
Yeah. More specifically, contact Ed. But I digress. Really, really quickly. If you find yourself in those circumstances, you need to reach out to experts who've done it before. Because the experts who've done it before are going to save you time. Some of you who've seen me before and some of you who haven't seen me before. You've heard my sprinkler system story. And basically, here's the short version. I thought I can fix my own underground sprinkler system. The police and the fire department were called. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay? What was once a $500 job turned into $2,800 once Ed got done. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I should have hired the expert. And the reason I should have hired an expert is I had no business whatsoever attempting to do something I had no skill set at. You hire the expert who already knows how to do whatever that expertise is, because it'll save you both time and money, if you will. So that's the thing that they should do. They should hire the expert in that particular case where they have to take in this keynote, make it into a 3-hour training. The expert is the only person who's going to help them. And again, we got 3 experts right here on this call who can help you in that space.
Yeah. And why this is important is you're talking in front of a client. Okay. So number one, serving that client, but even more importantly, well, maybe not more, but the same, is the perpetuation, the referrals, the fact that you've done it successfully before. You'll be able to do it successfully again. But if you try and DIY it, I just think, yeah, you can, but can you do it in a world-class level? No, not if it's your first time, not if you take a 1 hour to 3 hours. The cool thing is you got that expertise, but what you're saying, Ed, is you need the perspective to apply it to your expertise to be able to do it powerfully.
And I think
Absolutely. Well said.
It's true for us to say, none of us wants to be unforgettable for the wrong reasons. Right? And having the right kind of support and guidance, you can really create world-class training. And Ed and Darren have done this program several times, once a year this year, and I have been in the room. I've watched Ed work. I've watched Ed teach. I've watched Ed train. I've known Ed for 25 years. And I will tell you this may sound like a shameless plug, and I'll admit it, but I'm really challenged to find someone who is as adept, skillful, qualified, confident, and delivers the results that Ed Tate does. And I wholeheartedly endorse him as the trainer's trainer. So check it out. If you're thinking about training, you need to get with Ed Tate and Darren LaCroix. I mean,
and if you already are training, you will never look at training the same way again. Guaranteed. 3 days. Whether you join us virtually or whether you join us live in Vegas. Second week in September, go to stagetimeworkshops.com. Check out Ed Tate at edtate.com. Ed, thank you for being here. You are the reason we have a training business. I thank you.
You're welcome, my friend.
Final thoughts, Ed. Somebody wants to be their trainer. Let's just say they're a trainer already. They want to be unforgettable, and you're having coffee with them. Ed, what do I do?
Well, I before I answer that question, I just want to point something out. Mark, you talked about this. This is not just for beginner trainers. It's also for seasoned trainers. We've recently received 2 great endorsements. There's one individual who's worked with a major a global car manufacturer, and he's received the highest ratings he's ever received in his entire career. And he's worked with that company, I'm going to say like 6-7 years or so. Just got like a LinkedIn testimonial where the individual told me he has literally made millions of dollars. I think it was like $1.5 million in increased revenue and earnings based on the experience he had with Train the Trainer. So going back to your question, we're having coffee. What are some things we can do? Basically, we just had a virtual coffee right here. This is virtual coffee. So I'm inviting them to, play the replay on this because there's a bunch of Starbucks moments in this particular podcast.
Nice. Mark Brown, do we have a recap?
So many, I'll give you a few. Basically, speaking and training are different. Keynotes have a higher level of abstraction. Our keynotes affect our thoughts, but training changes our behavior. And one of the goals is to provide the tutorial effect. Look, I did it all by myself. Now, training can be longer, but the key here is audience engagement. Always ask yourself, how can I support this audience on this day in the best way possible? Make your ideas actionable and take a look at how instructions can have various levels. Provide content in digestible pieces, not just sound bites as you see in keynotes. Repetition is your friend when you have good content. And remember, when you're training, you're not just giving a keynote. You're trying to serve different learning styles. And you have to give content, as Ed says, in different modalities. One of the key activities is to debrief your ideas and your activities with the audience. Follow these tips, work with Ed, and chances are your training will be unforgettable.
Well
said.
Please consider joining us for Train the Trainer. Again, we only do it once a year. Go to stagetimeworkshops.com. Because you're listening to podcasts, use POD, P-O-D 25, 25% discount. Sooner you do it before the early bird pricing ends, the better, more ROI you'll get on your investment. Again, and by the way, the person that gave you that testimonial, Michael Arnold, is going to be back, and he got another VIP seat again. And we had one of your clients, Ed, get 2 VIP seats. So the VIP seats are sold out, but I promise you, this is not about sitting and watching. This is total engagement. Engagement, maybe.
So we didn't discuss any energizers this time around. Go to the workshop and see what those are. Please do.
All right. See you next week. We're going to talk about AI and speech writing.
Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix. Thanks for checking out this podcast episode on YouTube. If you want all of them, not every one is on YouTube, check out your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Keep being a sponge so you can be unforgettable.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.